I'm Anthony Andrews.
And I'm Teanne Andrews.
And together we are a company called We Are Parable, and we are here in the STUDIOCANAL offices to work on a very special project for Black History Month.
So We Are Parable, we're a multi-award winning film exhibition and distribution company, and we provide opportunities for audiences to experience and respond to Black cinema in culturally relevant, unique and memorable ways. And we're delighted to be here at the STUDIOCANAL office to talk through some of the canon of the Black cinema in the catalogue.
Yeah, to really talk about the importance of storytelling, representation in cinema, and to really use some of the films from the STUDIOCANAL catalogue to really influence and enhance our conversation. Let's get into it.
I think personally, I think it's really important for audiences of all ages to be represented on screen. To see yourselves represented is such a powerful thing, and I think a film is such a great medium to be able to do that and connect with audiences and have that actual initial emotional connection with an audience.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I just think back to watching like Spike Lee films when I was really young, probably a bit too young to watch them, and just learning about what is possible to do on camera, and to see someone who looks like you in front of you on camera is such a powerful thing. That's, as Teanne said, it's so impactful, and it makes you, you know, it's that whole adage of, you know, you can't be what you can't see, and it sounds cheesy and maybe it's oversaid, but it's a real thing. I think when you see someone who looks like you who are doing things in front of the camera or behind the camera, you are definitely given that confidence that you could do something similar. Or you know, you go the other way, and perhaps you might not want to be involved in filmmaking, but you can really discover more stories, and you know, really get a wider sort of aperture about, you know, what kind of stories are out there and who are these filmmakers who are telling these stories. So I think it's really important, storytelling as a vehicle to, you know, to lead to a wider representation.
Yeah, and when I think about when we started We Are Parable, we started the company because we wanted to go to events where we felt like we weren't represented. We wanted to be able to go along to a film screening and feel that what we were watching on screen represented us and our culture, and we were surrounded like people that looked like us, that could enjoy some of the cultural nuances that you get in some of the films. And so I think, you know, going back to what we do within film exhibition and distribution and starting We Are Parable, like the core heart of it is really around bringing amazing films to audiences.
Absolutely. And I think just just thinking about storytelling as a whole, you know, it's really about understanding characters' journeys and their growth and their adventures. And I think, you know, you just let your imagination run wild. And I think it's really important with, you know, sometimes there being negative stereotypes about people that look like us. I think it's great that you have stories to really, again, widen the narrative about Black lives on screen. And, you know, cinema and storytelling is a wonderful and effective way of doing that.
And not just like in front of the camera, but also behind the camera as well. Like, we're really interested in, you know, understanding like the different roles within the film industry and how, you know, there's representation within that part in terms of career progression as well. I feel like it's really important, like that there's opportunities for audiences to see professionals, Black professionals, not only directing films, but perhaps doing some of the other jobs that they might have never heard of. And I think that's a really good way of kind of really shining the spotlight on the film industry on a whole.
Yeah, for sure. Again, you know, I remember being like, probably get myself in trouble here, but like I was about 11, 12 years old in my room watching Do the Right Thing, you know, and just being blown away at how that film opens, you know, with, you know, Fight the Power playing and Rosie Perez dancing. I'm like, oh, films actually start like this? This is incredible. Like, this is blowing my mind. And I think, you know, just seeing what was possible with cinema is such a wonderful thing. And then I think if you go all the way to 2025 and you think about some of the films that have come out, and I think about that really pivotal scene in a film like Sinners, where you have like so much music happening at once, and all those generations of music all coalescing, and, you know, in this one moment in, you know, set in the 1950s, and I just think, wow, look, these two artists are in dialogue because you're doing things on cinema that perhaps break the rules in many ways. So I feel like the idea of filmmakers actually breaking the rules and doing something different, I think is something that's really powerful. Thinking about what Jim Jarmusch did with Ghost Dog and seeing a black samurai again, remember that from my childhood, from my teenagehood, I should say, and seeing that on screen was just like, oh, you can do that in a film as well. And I think these key cinematic moments have really shaped what I feel is possible within the format, within the art form.
Mm-hmm.
It's well-rounded characters. I think, one of the things that really irks me is when moments in films aren't earned. And when, a character just does a 180 out of nowhere, you've kind of built an idea of what a character does, how they're moving throughout the world, and then you're sort of given, a decision that they make, and then all of a sudden they're doing something that's completely out of character, that makes no sense and hasn't been foreshadowed in any way. So I think, and that can sometimes happen a lot with, black characters on screen, and there's, just countless films that I can think about that I've seen where, there's been a flawed black character, and, where, flawed characters are fine, but when, their flaws always add, they always end up in tragedy. That seems to be a case for a lot of black characters, certainly, from the sort of 50s onwards to about 80s, 90s. So I think what good characterization looks like is earned moments, rounded characters, and characters that, where you feel that there's some resolution in the story. So I think, a lot of films do this really well.
I think, to be honest, like Pansy from Hard Truths, that's a key example of how I feel like a character was completely authentic, really touched emotions in terms of me as a black woman, seeing another black woman on screen represented in that way, and knowing that actually I know a Pansy. Like, so many people within the black community can relate to Pansy's character within Hard Truths. And I think Marianne Jean-Baptiste did an amazing way of like really bringing the culture to the front, and actually, all of the unsaid, all of the things that were unsaid, but just because of her actions and her nuances, we already knew culturally what those things meant. I think the scene at the dinner table for me was like, hands down, that's when I was just like, she's amazing in terms of the character, from how she spoke about just, so many different things that came up within that discussion at the dinner table that got us to really know more about her character and what she's struggling with. I think there's definitely, like, for me, like, that's definitely a standout.
Yeah. And I think for me, watching Pool of London, having the opportunity to watch that as part of this partnership, a film from 1951, I believe, and watching the late, great Earl Cameron in this role. And, although he's not the main character, he's a supporting character, I think that the character arc that he goes through from, being a seaman to meeting a woman that he can't, socially, he feels like he can't be in a romantic relationship with her. He's a black man, she's a white woman. But there's a scene about halfway through the film where he's explaining that, he wishes that race didn't matter. And the woman that he's with is saying, well, it doesn't matter. And he's like, well, no, it does. And there's so much said in that moment. And you think, this is from 74 years ago and we're still having the same conversations. And then I think as the film progresses, you see the various challenges that he's faced with, but you really get the sense of a rounded character even back then. And Earl Cameron was doing wonderful things with his eyes, the sadness, the anger, the resentment that he felt for people that didn't look like him. And he just wanted to be treated like one of them, and he never was going to be treated like one of them. And I think there is a dialogue that's happening between Earl Cameron's performance in Pool of London to what Marianne Jean-Baptiste is doing in Hard Truths. I think they are doing incredible work that is unsaid, to your point. And it's wonderful to see that richness of character that's carried through from 1951 all the way through to 2025. It's a beautiful thing, and I think that's a really big part of why we wanted to do this partnership, to really, I guess, join the dots between what filmmaking and what characterization is doing in our day now to what it was doing 70 years ago. So yeah, it's just really important. Is
the amount of talent that's coming through, and amazing directors which are having opportunities to, you know, work on their first features and bring those to audiences.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree. I think there's so much talent. There's so many wonderful filmmakers that we know who are, you know, who have made a few shorts and now are on the road to, you know, have made their first feature. And it's just wonderful that we and other organisations are in a position to support their releases and to go out and tell people about these films. And hopefully, you know, what happens with these filmmakers is that they go on to make, you know, so many more films. But I think more so than the volume of filmmakers, talented filmmakers who are coming out and making work, I think it's the level of ambition that I'm always so blown away by. And I think it's just, you know, the aperture and the ambition is growing and growing. I think as the world gets smaller because of the internet, because of social media and, you know, communities building online and talking to one another, I think what's possible in film is really being shared amongst the global communities. And I think that really helps UK black filmmakers understand like what's possible and how different how there are different ways to tell different stories. So I'm really excited to see, like, you know, stories as old as time being presented to us in really different ways. So, yeah.
And I think there's a really nice thing about, you know, different creatives changing different roles within like cinema, like starting off maybe as a director or as a writer and then going on to direct or vice versa. And I really like seeing when, for example, there's like a directorial debut, for example, from an actor. I think I was really excited when I saw like Idris Elba directing Yardie, for example, because I was just a bit like, oh, right, like now he's like actually, you know, taking that leap into directing. And I remember like us working on Yardie and working really closely with the team at STUDIOCANAL and seeing like Amel Amin and seeing his kind of progression and
he's a writer director
and he's a writer director now. So I really like that kind of those opportunities where like creatives are able to kind of interchange those different sets.
And it feels more than ever that it's a real community that's willing to support one another, and there's an understanding that it's like, you know, we're all in it together. We're all trying to get these stories out to audiences as much as possible, and, you know, really try and, you know, not only go for the highest heights and try and get these stories out to as many people as possible, but also to inspire the next generation coming behind them so they can go even further. So I think that's a really lovely ecosystem that we have.
There's two, and I'd say two for two separate reasons. The first one, I would say, the partnership that we worked on with STUDIOCANAL was Yardie, because I think from a creative point of view, there was a lot of creative autonomy that we had, not only with how we delivered the event, the screening, but also with like the visuals and also like the commissioning an artist. It was like one of the first times that we commissioned like an artist that we really liked his work, loved his work, seen his work around graffiti artists, and we thought, you know what, it'd be really great for him to be drawn into this project and create a mural of the main character. And I feel like that then went on, I think, to have its space in Carnival, and then we did the LFF launch, the LFF launch. So I feel like that was a real kind of way that we were able to work creatively. And we did an event outside of London, in Birmingham, I remember, and we really wanted to celebrate sound system culture. And this was like the first time that we managed to like convince a cinema to have like a 7-foot sound system in the foyer of there.
I think it was 10 foot, wasn't it?
10 foot, it was massive, and it was bright yellow. It was the most beautiful, like, you know, sound system like piece, like huge speakers. And, you know, we were able to really create like such a strong visual identity for the screening. So I think that Yardie gave us that opportunity to really celebrate Jamaican culture with both, you know, our cultural Jamaican backgrounds, and really have that kind of vibrancy come out in the events. For sure.
No, I think that was it. That was one of the earlier events where we were just like, we want to celebrate black cinema, and I think that was a real manifestation of it. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to say my second one.
Go.
It's hard truth.
Hard truths, of course. Yeah.
Because I think what we always say is that we like to give opportunities for audiences to experience and respond, and I feel like hard truths was the opportunity for audiences to respond. We really saw people wanting to talk and delve in after the Q&A and stay in the cinema and discuss the characters and talk about the storyline and talk about what it means for a family member with mental health or having challenging time within their lives. And I feel like we were able to give audiences that opportunity to have that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
When you see audiences wanting to stay an hour or two after to discuss a film.
And that's the thing. I remember when we saw it, we were just like, this is one of the best performances you're ever going to see on screen. And it's a film that doesn't offer any easy answers
or solutions.
And you watch it, and I remember the first time I watched it, just thinking, wow, it's such a gut punch. Especially, don't want to say too much about the ending, but there's one bit where you're expecting someone to do something and they don't, and you're just like, oh, and then the film just ends, and you're like, what are you left with? What's the next step? And you're constantly, that's the thing about audience. They were asking, okay, well, what happens next? And I think that's a sign of a wonderful filmmaking crew that are just like, we actually want to leave you with that, leave you with that character, and just giving our audience the opportunity to really dissect that film and hear their theories, their thoughts, their antidotes of people who are like Patsy. Was just so powerful to
and
hear.
Some of the other characters as well, I think Michelle Austin's character was just really just how do you become a support for someone who's in that position.
The sisters as well.
Yeah.
The sisters, in terms of one's holding back, being sort of helped, being sort of criticised at work and saying everything's going great, and what does that do to her mental wellness over the years? And is that the beginning catalyst of something happening to her later down the line? You just don't, all of these things that all these questions and conversations that it brought out of is really good. And I think again, it's good to talk about these things and how storytelling is a real reflection of our lives, to how we know people, how it could be something that we're going through ourselves. And I think a film like that really does just open you up in ways that you might not feel comfortable talking about yourself or your family member, but it sparks something inside you just to have a conversation about. And I think I can only speak for myself, but I'm very honoured that we've been able to create spaces like that where people feel the need to express themselves via the beauty of cinema. It's an amazing thing, and it's as we're sitting there talking, it's a really humbling thing that we've been able to do that. I think when it comes to Black History Month, I kind of feel like what we do is celebrate Black cinema all year round.
Yes.
Why we were so keen to take this opportunity with STUDIOCANAL and into this partnership was really about, I guess, looking back and seeing the threads that you can start to connect with, films like A Man Called Adam, like Pool of London, like One Potato, Two Potato, and see how those films have really shaped the films that are being made today. So I think it really gives us an opportunity to look back and really try and connect those dots across the Black cinema canon. So I think that was something that was really important to us. But I think it's even more essential to say that what we do is all year round, and it's a celebration of film all year round.
Yeah, and I always say that Black History Month for me is almost like an invitation.
Yes.
It's an invitation for people to either self-discover new things about our history, our culture, and for others, and learning, and just an open way to learn. But also, it's a reminder that it's not just, it shouldn't be just one month of the year. I always see it as a catalyst. So if there's amazing events that are on for Black History Month, we often go and support as many as we can. But it's also about, what's happening after that and how we kind of take in our learnings from those events or, from those one-off things that we're doing for that month, and how we kind of using them throughout the year. I feel like it's really important that we keep having Black History Month at the forefront of these conversations within workplaces, within cultural institutions, but also for it not to be forgotten for the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's about keeping it. It's about keeping the conversation going, and you know, yeah. To your point, I think you nailed it. I think it is about discovery for other communities to maybe see, you know, universal stories within Black stories, because I think, you know, that's the thing that draws us to cinema anyways, the universal stories. But yeah, I think it is a way of us being able to I guess amplify what we love about Black cinema even more in this month. And then, you know, really for people that want to find out more, then we're here. There's other organisations here who are doing amazing work to make sure that these stories are preserved, that they're protected, that they are, you know, looked after, and that the future storytellers are, again, you know, given that space to tell their stories to a bigger audience as possible. So, you know, I think that's why Black History Month is so important.